Listening to Freedom FM 106.5. It's 7:31. And in a very short while, we'll be having Freedom Talk tonight. And tonight on Freedom Talk, we'll be having an interview with the Honorable Patrice Nisbett. He's the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Homeland Security, Labor, Justice, and Legal Affairs. Very pleasant good evening, one and all. And welcome to Freedom Talk. And as usual, this is your host, Austin Edinborough. And tonight, we will be having an in-house interview. And at some point during that interview, we will open the lines for callers. It would be probably the first hour or just over an hour. That again will depend on the interaction that we have. Tonight's guest is the Honorable Patrice Nisbett, and he's the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Homeland Security, Labor, Justice, and Legal Affairs. Good night, the Honorable Patrice Nisbett. Welcome back to the studios of Freedom FM.
Good night, and thank you for having me. I would want to say good night to those who are listening to this program by whatever means, whether it is by radio or by the World Wide Web. I would also want to say good evening to the people of Nevis, the residents and citizens, and those of my constituency in particular, which is Nevis 11.
All right. Well, the last time you were here, Mr. Minister, you were also the Attorney General. So this is where I'll start. I'm sure that quite a lot of people are somewhat confused as to, well, what is legal affairs, justice? How does it differ from the office of the Attorney General? Can you shed some light on that? And while you're highlighting the difference, can you also highlight the functionary of justice and legal affairs?
Well, the Constitution specifically provides for the office of the Attorney General, which person would be the principal legal advisor to the government. In relation to other offices of ministers, those are also provided in the Constitution, and the appointment is made by the Governor General on the advice of the Honorable Prime Minister. In relation to the issue of the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs, that both ministries consist of the courts, the Director of Public Prosecution Department, our Legal Aid Department, our Law Commission, our Intellectual Property Office. These are the different departments of government which comprise the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs. And so the Attorney General's chambers would primarily provide legal advice to the government and to the various ministries and departments of government. And so, in a nutshell, the chambers will be giving the requisite advice that is required by the government in order to function in accordance with the relevant legislative framework or regulatory framework, whichever it is.
Right. Well, so your ministry is responsible for the functioning of our judiciary, so to speak.
Well, I wouldn't put it that way. What I would say is that we deal with the administration of our administration of justice here in St. Kitts and Nevis. You know, in relation to the judiciary is separate and apart from the executive and the legislature. And our system, we are part of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court system. And so they are responsible in relation to the appointment, the terms and conditions of work in relation to the judiciary. But in relation to the staff, which provides the necessary support services for the functioning of our courts here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we have that oversight and the responsibility in relation to those persons.
All right. Well, you're also the Minister of Foreign Affairs. I mean, you've got so many portfolios now. We have to jump here and there because I would want the listening public to get a real feel of your ministries and what your responsibilities are and where our country and government stand with respect to those ministries. So let's get to foreign affairs. We have always heard about foreign affairs, and a lot of us know that foreign affairs is about, well, relationship with other countries. But the question is, do we have a foreign policy? And if so, what is it?
Well, the government of St. Kitts and Nevis do have a foreign policy, and they are in the process right now of codifying that policy into a document. And so there is a draft that has been worked on for a number of years, and it is at the stage now where it is going through comments from different stakeholders in the government, and soon that document will be signed off on by the Cabinet of Ministers in St. Kitts and Nevis, and one will have a document that one can take and look at and see what constitute the foreign policy of the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. And you know, by and large, as you say, it's really how we relate to different countries in order to achieve our goal. We take decisions that are in the strategic interests of St. Kitts and Nevis when it comes to our foreign policy. When you look at our relationship with the Republic of China on Taiwan, you would clearly see how the government has used its relationship with a foreign government in order to bring mutual benefit to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. We have done work with the Brazilians. We have done work with the Republic of Venezuela, Cuba, and there are different countries in the world that we have been able to work in the international community and bring meaningful development to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. If I can recall, the Mexicans, they would have invested monies in the construction of 2 police stations here in St. Kitts, in order to help assist in the improvement of the national security apparatus in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so the government has been active in its foreign relations in order to ensure that whatever it does, it brings mutual benefit to the country and to the people of the country. We have seen tremendous investment in the human infrastructure of St. Kitts and Nevis as a result of our friendly or diplomatic relations with different countries.
You did say that that a foreign policy is at present being drafted. So
well, the document is being document. We have a draft document.
You have a draft document.
We do,
so
yes.
Pretty soon we are hoping to have a written foreign policy so that the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis can...
Well, I would say that I think there was some document that was produced back in 2005. Mm-hmm. And so that document has been built on because, you know, there are changes, a dynamic situation that we are dealing with. And so the people at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they have sat down and they have decided because of the different changes in the international arena, they have sought to revise and upgrade and improve on that existing document in order to reflect what is the current climate in relation to the international relations between St. Kitts and Nevis and different states.
All right. I mean, I know you're fairly new in the job, but I'm going to ask you an age-old question anyway. We are talking about our relationship with other countries. And I'll go directly to the United States of America. I go there because, well, some say they're the world police. Some say they're the world bully. Some say they're the world security. But it is a country that lots of our citizens gravitate towards. And so I ask, do we have a dynamic, to use your word, foreign policy relation with the U.S.? And if so, is it possible you can highlight for the listening audience what it's about?
Well, the U.S. has traditionally been one of our friends in the international arena. And by and large, in the Caribbean, especially at CARICOM, we try as much as possible to formulate a common position when it comes to issues in the international arena and our dealings with different states. I think, as you're aware, as a result of our engagement, we have been able to negotiate a number of treaties with the United States, which have brought benefit to us, firstly, in the area of our trade in goods. You know about the Caribbean Basin Initiative, the CBI. I think that was renamed sometime and expanded. And the manufacturing sector here in St. Kitts and Nevis do have some preferential status or arrangement under a treaty like that, so that goods that are produced on the industrial estate here in St. Kitts access the U.S. market under that preferential arrangement. You would also be aware that as a result of the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative, we have been able to negotiate a security partnership with the United States of America. And you would know that I think it's premised on the fact that insecurity in the Caribbean is a threat to security in the United States of America. And so the U.S. under President Obama for the year 2011 to 2012 committed U.S. $77 million towards improving the security apparatus in the Caribbean in terms of law enforcement, training, surveillance, and other areas, all in an effort to improve the security situation here in the Caribbean. St. Kitts and Nevis has benefited from that program from time to time. And so, as a result of our good relations with the United States of America, we have been able to benefit tremendously under the different treaties that we have been able to negotiate in our strategic interests.
All right. Let's move to Homeland Security. It's a relatively new ministry, just about, 2 years old, I think, or nearly that. Certainly over a year, maybe not quite 2 years old. What does this ministry entail? What does it cover?
The Ministry of Homeland Security is mandated to contribute to the security and safety of the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. And in Homeland Security, we deal with issues like work permit, passport. The Department of Immigration comes under Homeland Security. The Fire and Rescue Services, they are also under Homeland Security. The prison is also under this ministry head.
And I think somewhere...
Citizenship applications are also processed
under Homeland Security?
Through the Ministry of Homeland Security also.
Well, somewhere along the line, I mean, please don't ask me my source, I learned that you would have had a meeting with the prison, the authority, the staff at the prison, since you have had this ministry. Now, how did that go, Mr. Minister?
Well, the normal course in the government is that when you take over a ministry, you try as much as possible to meet with the persons whom you will be working with, and also to get a feel as to what are the challenges and what are the issues that affect the smooth and effective operation of the different departments. And so I think I had the opportunity, was yesterday, to visit 1840, Her Majesty's Prison, where I met with the superintendent and all the persons who work over there at the institution. It was a very interesting, a very lively meeting. They were able to clearly articulate and outline what are some of their concerns and what are some of the difficulties that they are experiencing in the environment in which they work on a day-to-day basis. I think we were able to document those concerns. And as we normally say in the law, if there's a mischief, we normally try to fashion a solution to deal with the mischief. As you're aware, if you don't know, the prison population in St. Kitts and Nevis stands at 354 persons. I think there are 351 males and 3 females. The very alarming statistic that came to my attention during my visit was the fact that 34% of the prison population consists of people on remand. It's quite troubling to me.
Very high, quite troubling.
Quite troubling. And on remand mean people who are waiting matters to be heard. And so we really need to get a hold of the situation in order to reduce that percentage of the prison population. Because it is easier to justify detention after a conviction, but it is much more difficult to justify pre-hearing detention or pre-trial detention, if that is the expression that should be better used. And so the Ministry of Justice is also under my portfolio. And so we will work assiduously to see how we will be able to reduce over time considerably those persons who are on or who are in Her Majesty's Prison awaiting hearing of their matter. They brought to my attention some very old matters. I intend to engage our Director of Public Prosecution or Acting Director of Public Prosecution so that we will be able to give some attention to these matters and so that they can be decided one way or the other. Because it's
troubling.
It is troubling. It is troubling that the situation is as. At present, I must tell you that we are in some very intense and serious negotiation with some financiers who are prepared to invest $30 million in the construction of a brand new prison facility for the country. We understand that we can't continue with the present arrangement. And so one would need to have available a modern state-of-the-art facility in order to house persons who have run afoul of the law for whatever reason.
Hope that doesn't encourage criminal behavior, though.
No, I wouldn't want to think that the facility would be so nice that people would want to go there. I would want to think that people in this country would want to be peaceful and law-abiding citizens, and they would try as much as possible not to offend or breach the existing laws of St. Kitts and Nevis. We also want to encourage the use of the alternative sentencing legislation, and also the incorporation of technology in the criminal justice system and in our prison system. You would see around the world that they have used a lot of electronic monitoring of prisoners. Instead of incarcerating people, you may put a bracelet or something or some tag, and so that you're able to keep track of the person instead of housing them in an environment of that nature. And this can be for persons who are of very tender age, and depending upon the nature of the offense with which that person is being charged. And so this is all in an effort to do some meaningful and serious prison reform in St. Kitts and Nevis. If my recollection serves me right, under that CBSI initiative, there is monies allocated for prison reform. And so we would want to be able to avail ourselves of the funds, the resources, so that we can carry out some of our rehabilitation programs. Because it is very important that when persons would have gone to prison and they come back, they are properly reintegrated into our society. And so it must not be about retribution and deterrence, but reform must also be a part of the process or one of the aims of sentencing in a particular manner. And so we intend to deal with that. It was also highlighted while I was there, the issue of debtors' prison.
Oh, I was just about to come to that, because I was saying you're talking about prison reform and alternative sentencing, and yet I'm certain that as we speak, there are persons in that prison who have not committed one crime.
Well, I think the statistics would indicate to you it was only about maybe 2 or 3 persons who were there in relation to debtors' prison. There's 2 or 3 persons.
Yes.
But it is something that is still on the books of St. Kitts and Nevis. And I believe that when we are able to fashion a solution that is equally effective as that, I think that serious consideration will be given to removing that provision from the laws of St. Christopher and Nevis. But up until now,
it is the law. I understand.
It is still the law, and it is still the most effective means of people satisfying debts that are outstanding. It is still the most effective means.
Let me just ask you a question in relation to that before we move to the other ministry. Now, you were talking about satisfying the means. Shouldn't the law be centered around collection rather than imprisonment as an alternative sentence? And give me a minute, let me tell you what I mean. For example, if a person is, there's a judgment and an order is made, and it's an order that is paid by installment. At the bottom, it is said, or the order is, that in default of one payment, let us say the payment is $200. If for some reason you can't pay that $200, they expect you to fine $10,000 or you go to jail. And therein, in my opinion, lies the foul of the law. if a person, if it is determined that a person can only afford to pay $200 per month, how can you call on them to pay $10,000? Shouldn't the alternative sentencing be for that $200 so that that person can easily find that and stay out of prison and continue? I'm just saying, that's just my thinking.
First of all, the alternative sentencing provisions will not apply in relation.
No, when it's alternative, I'm talking
in
about
relation to civil matters.
I'm talking about the debt. The debt.
No. You see, before you get to a warrant of commitment, there is a process.
Mm-hmm.
You have, first of all, a judgment is obtained.
Mm-hmm.
And then from the judgment is obtained, you go to what we call a judgment summons.
JDS.
Where means testing is done.
No,
means testing is done.
JDS. There should be the DDS.
Well, that was put out of the legislation some time ago. That has not been used. So you go to the JDS where you do the means testing.
Mm-hmm.
And the court will examine you
Mm-hmm.
as to your ability to repay the debt.
That's what I'm saying.
Then it is only after you would have defaulted
Mm-hmm.
in that process, because you would have indicated to the court that you could only pay 200.
Yeah, that's the point I'm
making. The
making.
court makes the order that you pay 200.
But something happens. You don't have the ability to go back before the court. But something happens in one given month, and you're unable to pay $200 on time. And as a result of that, they call on you to pay $10,000.
You see, some orders may be structured in a way that you would only be called upon to pay what is the arrears rather than the full amount. It all depends upon the construct of the particular order.
That's what I'm talking about.
That is given. It all depends on that. But normally, when one reaches to the warrant stage, it is because of
default.
The fact that people have defaulted for a fairly...
For whatever reason.
No, but apart from whatever reason, it's because people have defaulted for a fairly long time. And so, at that stage, whoever will employ the method that is available, because it is absolutely critical that people collect the fruits of their judgment.
Certainly.
Absolutely critical. Certainly. That is how the system is designed, so that debts are satisfied within the time frame that is stipulated by the legal framework.
All right. Let us go on to your next ministry that you cover, which is labor, quite interestingly. Tell us briefly what that covers, and while you're at that, if you can tell us some of the challenges you may have encountered in taking over this ministry.
Well, the Department of Labor really seeks to promote a very harmonious industrial relations climate in St. Kitts and Nevis. And you know, the Labor Department is staffed by a Commissioner of Labor, and he has his deputies who have certain responsibilities under the relevant legal framework. They ensure that the necessary inspections are done. They deals with issues with regards to severance payment. They also provide services in terms of employment. And they also collect, and store labor market information. And so they have serious responsibilities under the labor legislation in terms of the issue of grievances and disputes between employer and employees, where they ought to use a conciliatory process in order to settle the dispute that has arisen in the given situation. They ought to be umpires. They ought to be neutral in the exercise of their functions under the act that they would be empowered under. In relation to the Department of Labor and some of the concerns that one has to deal with is, first of all, the issue of the severance payment. We have had a number of challenges in relation to the administration of that fund and claims being made on that fund. A number of persons have been trying to use the fund for years as a retirement fund. And the fund was never designed for that. The fund was designed for compensation of workers who are severed or who are retrenched for whatever purpose. And so, as a result of certain claims that are made on the fund, it has put the fund under serious strain. And so, we really need to look at the deficiencies in the fund and see how we could better manage the fund and better deal with some of the issues that we have seen over the years in terms of how the fund has been accessed in order for persons to claim the severance fund. For 2012, we have had a number of claims on the fund, and that is as a result of the existing economic situation in the country. And so we have had to look at the situation and see how we are going to restructure the fund, whether it is going to be a possible trust fund, how it's going to be managed. These are some of the issues that we are grappling with now in relation to going forward with this severance fund.
So in other words, you're thinking that the fund, at this point, the fund is much smaller than what it is expected to deliver in terms of its ability.
What I would say at this point in time, serious strain has been put on the fund. Serious strain has been put on the fund. And the question of the sustainability of the fund comes to mind, and we have to address those issues in a very practical and a very real way. Because, as I've said, the nature of some of the claims that we see coming through clearly to our mind indicate that people are using the fund in a way that it was not contemplated at the time the fund was established under the Protection of Employment Act. We at the Department of Labor are looking seriously at the modernization of the labor laws in the country. And so we intend to continue the work on the development of a comprehensive labor code for St. Kitts and Nevis. Labor is important in the transformation of the national economy, and so we need to continue the work that has been started some time ago on that labor code. One of the other issues is the issue of the possibility of a short-term unemployment scheme or fund that we are looking at. Persons who are out of work or in between jobs, they will be able to make claim on such a fund during the time that they are unemployed, and so they will have some resources in order to sustain themselves. One of the other things that we are engaged with is the issue of a gratuity payment for persons who have been working in establishments for a pretty long time.
So that would remove the retirement part of it?
No, in some establishments, there are no retirement package.
I know. I'm saying that you
There's no
had
pension
indicated
scheme.
that persons were using the fund, the severance payment fund, as retirement because they've been working for a long time. They've reached the stage of retirement, so instead of saying they're retired, they say that they have
Make redundant.
they have been made redundant.
Right.
And so you are saying that something separate from the severance payment fund is being looked at.
Yes.
For persons who would fit that category.
They might fit into that category. Persons who have worked at establishment for a very long time, and they are now deciding to move on. We are going to look at the possibility of those persons being entitled to a gratuity for the years of service. And so we intend to have the calculation based upon the same way that you would do the calculation if that person was entitled to a severance payment.
Okay.
And so the thinking is that it would not be at no additional cost to the employers, because the same amount of contribution that is contributed in relation to the severance payment, we would use that same amount in order to satisfy the gratuity payment.
All right. All right. We'll go to our sponsors, and when we return, we will continue the interview, and then at some later point, we will open the lines. Callers, please wait on the signal before you start calling. And as usual, we are sponsored by the cable, Digicel, the Bigger Better Network, and CNC. All right, welcome back to Freedom Talk. And before we went to break, Honorable Minister, we were dealing with, and just to remind folks, just in case you joined us late, tonight we have in our studios the Honorable Patrice Nisbett. He is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Homeland Security, Labor, Justice, and Legal Affairs. And we looked briefly at the various ministries within his portfolio. And now we'll get a little more in-depth in terms of the questioning. And I'd like to go to labor, because you did mention that there's some reform in mind in terms of the labor code. My question to you is one of compensation, because wrongful dismissal, in my mind, could put a person back 10, 15 years. And I believe that lots of the employers, in the absence of an industrial court, do that because they know the law requires them only to pay 3 months payment in lieu of notice, as much as 3 months payment. And so my question to you is, anywhere in the upgrading of the labor code and the labor relations, is there envisaged an industrial court in St. Kitts and Nevis?
Well, I don't know if we are going to go as far as an industrial court. That would depend upon the different contributions that we receive from our stakeholders. What I can tell you, what is being considered is a tribunal. The tribunal will have the power to settle and deal with the disputes that arise between employer and employees. If it is the view, or it is the prevailing view, at the time we come to the codification or the enactment of the legislation, that an industrial court is what is required in St. Kitts and Nevis to deal with the different labor disputes, well, we indeed will consider that question of cost, the question of how it will be staffed and run, and so those are very relevant and pertinent questions that will factor in the decision making as to whether one goes for an industrial court as opposed to just a tribunal that will make the determination in the disputes. What in relation to the matter that you would have alluded to in your presentation of the question, as to the amount of time,
the amount of compensation,
the amount of time and the amount of compensation in order to effect a proper dismissal, well, that is governed by the law, or it can also be governed by the contract. And so, if you would have been able to negotiate better and more favorable terms under your existing contractual arrangement between yourself and your employer, you will have the benefit of that favorable position. But you must also remember and respect the fact that the general principle in relation to employee and employer is that there must be the ability at some point in time for each person to terminate the services of either person if they so wish.
Yes.
You have to appreciate that basic fact. And
yes.
So an employee is not tied to an employer for life or vice versa. So and so that is the basis upon which the legislation would have been drafted.
All right. Well, we'll come back to that a little later on, because I do believe that we can do better than that. But let us move back to justice and legal affairs. And I go back there, you see, because the administration of the court, particularly, or in particular, the magistrate court, in my, to the best of my knowledge, really, the appointment of magistrates, etc., falls within the government, the territory government. Even though the OECS countries are governed by the OECS Supreme Court, when it comes to appointing magistrates for the court of first instance, that is something that the individual governments handle. So, in St. Kitts, persons have had, or there have been a lot of complaint about what happens in the court of first instance and the dissatisfaction of the level of justice that is administered. I'm not saying it is so, and I'm not saying it is not, but there has been those complaints. And so I'm asking, does your ministry have any intention of getting folks together, looking at our system as it is? For example, let me give you one administrative complaint that I have. You go around there on any given day, you go around the courthouse, and you have people standing or sitting in the square for hours, waiting to be called into court. Does the government have any plan in dealing with that matter?
Let me first of all say that the appointment of magistrates, I wouldn't say that it is a government matter, because you would be well aware that the Public Service Commission has a role to play in the appointment of our judicial officers vis-a-vis our magistrates. And also, that appointment has to get approval by the Judicial and Legal Service Commission, which is a sub-regional body of the OECS countries. And so it is not entirely a matter, as you would put it, for the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. It's a very clear, transparent process by which our magistrates here in St. Kitts and Nevis are appointed. I know that quite often people go to court and because of what would have transpired in court. They might have lost, they might have won, and they might feel that justice was not meted out to them for different considerations. But we try as hard as possible to staff our courts with people who are competent, people who are impartial, people who are indeed independent. So when they go and exercise their different jurisdiction, it would be done in accordance with the relevant law that is applicable to the matter under consideration. In relation to the issue of waiting, well, one of the things that we wanted to do some time ago was to introduce the concept of night court. We wanted to look at some of the matters and see whether that they can be dealt with possibly in the afternoon. Matters like traffic matters or possible maintenance matters, that they can be dealt with in the afternoon when people would have finished work and they can come down and they can have their matters heard at that time, so that it would be of less an inconvenience to them in their attendance to court. Also, it has been looked at, and I think that has been tried some time ago, where you slot people in that one would be given a time to come and for your matter to be heard at that particular point in time, instead of having to wait around for hours waiting for your matter to be called up. I believe that if we do some allocation of time for matters, it can simply address the concern that you raise, and I believe the general public will be more satisfied with how the system operates. And so you know at 11 o'clock your matter will start and it will be tried, and so you leave work and you come down to the court at 11. Also, the system of adjournments, we really need to seriously look at it in a way that we reduce the number of times matters are adjourned for different reasons. Some of those reasons are reasons that are beyond person's control, and so it has to be adjourned. But we seriously need to examine the causes and the reasons for adjournments and see how we could deal with that in a way that we improve the efficiency of the operations of our court. And so if we are able to do those things, the general public, when they interact with our judicial system, even if they are not successful, they would at least feel that they were dealt with in a professional manner, in a timely manner, and their matter was in fact disposed of, and they don't have to come back to the courts time and time again, which builds frustration, and then people would tend to believe that they have not received the justice in a particular matter.
Well, let me talk about waiting, because I do have a concern, yes, not just the length of time, but where people have to wait in the square, even school children in uniform. And so, I mean, there's a building adjacent, and I'm just putting this to you now. There's a building adjacent to the court. I don't know if it is still being used by the electoral office. I know for sure nobody works in it on a daily basis. Could you make it possible that there is a waiting room available for persons who are waiting to be called, rather than having to sit in the square or stand in the square, as it is?
That can be examined. I know the building has been earmarked for a different function, but one can look at it and see whether it would be feasible in the circumstance. But in terms of a long-term plan, we are part of what we call the Halls of Justice program. where we intend to build some courts, well, a facility that will house different courts. And the way how it has been designed, it will be able to address that same very concern that you would have raised this evening. We intend to, well, this facility will be built outside of Bastia, and so it will be pretty modern and pretty much state-of-the-art, and it will deal with most of the challenges that we are now experiencing at the facility where the courts are housed presently.
All right, let me ask you a question with respect to Homeland Security, and then I'll ask you one from Foreign Affairs. We'll go to our sponsors, and when we return, we will open up the lines to our listeners. Now, you did mention that Homeland Security also deals with work permits. Is it possible that you can tell us the number of applications you've had, let's say over last year or the last 2 years, for work permit in this country, and whether or not any of those jobs could have been had by locals?
Well, the granting of work permits is done in accordance with our regulatory framework. I know it is indeed a very sensitive area, that people feel that the jobs that are available in St. Kitts and Nevis should be given firstly to nationals of St. Kitts and Nevis. I think we embarked upon a very rigorous exercise before we grant work permits to prospective applicants. And you are quite aware that some of the jobs in relation to where work permits are granted are in areas where some of our people don't wish to engage in a meaningful way. And so these services have to be provided. And also, in some of the areas, the necessary skill set is not available. And if the task has to be carried on, one will have to recruit persons with the requisite skill set in order for the operation to be carried on. And so the department is tasked with ensuring that when an application is being processed, it is indeed a very genuine application, and it is an application which satisfies the criteria which is laid down in order for the work permit to be granted. In relation to the number of work permits, we have, I think, I am told, in excess of about 1,000 persons in St. Kitts who are holders of work permits.
Okay. I did say we will go directly to, but let me just ask a question. Any consideration, or if there is in existence, I don't know, of a special income tax for holders of work permits?
My recollection of the law is that the only income tax that is paid is corporation tax. Corporation tax. In relation to persons who work in St. Kitts and Nevis, the provisions of the Income Tax Act do not apply to them individually.
Could that be a consideration? Because I'm a person who feel if you can leave the land of your birth and come to another country to gain employment, to send money back to the land of your birth, that some of that money should go to the country that allows you to be able to do that in a different way, by way of taxation. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, it's clearly something that has to be considered, first of all. That has to be studied, first of all. And then the policy has to be framed. Policy will have to be framed. And then the decision will have to be taken as to whether one would want to move into that direction. Also, one will have to consider whether it is a matter that is going to meet constitutional muster. Because there might be some pushback. Some people might say it's discrimination or some other provision or some other issue that may arise as a result of moving in that particular direction. So it has to be studied carefully before one embark upon that direction.
Okay. All right. The last question that I'm going to ask in relation to foreign affairs before we go to our sponsors. You did mention briefly about CARICOM and trying to have one common policy, especially in dealing with the United States of America.
Well, countries generally. Yeah.
Countries generally do that. Well, I want to ask specifically with respect to our functioning. And I know it might be hard because you're new in the job, but it's the first time I'm having a chance to talk to somebody from Foreign Affairs. It has to do with our voting at the United Nations, our participation at the United Nations. I know you have not been there, but you're the man at the helm now, and so maybe this might help you to craft something going forward. I know that ideally CARICOM tried to vote as one, but when we are faced with an issue at the United Nations, do you think that it is a situation, especially one that is touchy, where there should be some consultation with the populace before a decision is taken as to how you vote, for example, in relation to the Middle East? You know, things like that. Do you think that that is possible, that you keep the people involved and informed at the same time?
Well, the government is representative of the people of the country. And so, normally, when important decisions are to be made, the government would, in whatever forum or fora, consult with the general public or the populace in the country. And you would see from time to time the government has engaged in town hall meetings or call-in shows so that one can gauge from the general public on a particular issue how they are indeed thinking in relation to that matter. The question is whether what sort of mechanism that can be put in place in order to gauge the view of the general public on certain foreign policy matters. Maybe the parliamentarians who are the representative of the people, maybe some committee can be put in place consisting of those persons or some of the persons, so that some advice or some comment can be sought when it is a matter of tremendous import to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis that is under consideration. We say we are a part of a participatory democracy, and so it is important that we do engage the general public. But the proper mechanism has to be worked out in order for that feedback to be obtained from the general populace. Quite naturally, there are some decisions that can be taken. And more and often, what would be the guiding factor would be what is in the strategic interests of St. Kitts and Nevis at the time of the decision making. But if it is that you're saying that it is a matter that is of tremendous import, and so consultation is required, I believe that the requisite mechanism can be fashioned in order to obtain that relevant input that is required from the populace. I think it has been done on a number of issues, and so it can be done on an issue that is in the international arena. I am sure we know and we consult on issues like climate change. What is the view of the general public in relation to a matter of that? And I am sure that has fashioned or influenced the position and stand that St. Kitts and Nevis has taken in the past in relation to issues of that nature.
All right. Well, I would say that we're doing pretty well so far for time. We're going to go to our sponsors, and when we return, we will invite participation. We will invite participation. And let me sound an ear of caution. You know how I am when it comes to respect. You know I am a stickler for respect. Let me speak to the persons on the wall, because there has been some measure of disrespect on the wall, and I don't appreciate it. It's about time that you listen to other people, because at the end of the day, you want your views to be heard. How do you expect other people to have respect for your views when you seem not to want to respect the views of others? So remember, when you call, it is about respect, or I will disconnect you. We go to our sponsors, and we return, and we will involve our callers. Remember the telephone numbers to call when you come back: 465-0546, 465-6474, or our international line, 305-515-3099.
Enjoy all 3 services from the cable.
The quality of your service is very excellent.
The internet service is great.
And I talk all day on my Freedom Call.
The cable's triple play.
We pride ourselves on delivering quality.
The best internet service.
We make it easy to stay in touch.
The cable's triple play. Take all 3 services from the cable and enjoy 10% off your cable bill. The cable's triple play. The cable is located on the corner of Keon and New Street in Basse-Terre. Call 465-2588 for more information.
During the Love Month, treat that special someone to a new smartphone from Digicel. Purchase your sweetheart a touchscreen Alcatel 720 for only $99. Or 4G Samsung 5360 for as low as $399. Say I love you with a BlackBerry 9790 for $999. Keep connected to your loved ones with 2 months free internet with your purchase and a chance to win a romantic getaway for 2 at the 5 Diamond Luxury Resort, 4 Seasons in Nevis.
Digicel's Valentine's promotion ends February 28th. Terms and conditions apply.
Hungry to get the taste.
Tasteful, nutritious, and right within the budget. You're invited to lunch at CNC Deli, Monday to Saturday. On any given day, select your meals from meat kind of chicken, fish, beef, mutton, turkey, and sides of rice, pasta, or mashed potatoes. Your meal is complete with steamed vegetables and coleslaw and tossed salad. Like our Facebook page on www.facebook.com/CNC Superfoods for daily postings of our menu. Cause you never know when Chef Arthur will whip up his cornmeal and okras with mackerel, a customer favorite. CNC Deli on George Street. Savor the savings.
Yeah, you're hungry. You're hungry, 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 hungry.
Oh, yes, and tomorrow, it's Valentine's Day, and the menu at CNC Deli. You have Creole trout, $20 per serving, stewed oxtail, $25 per serving, stewed lamb, $18 per serving, Creole pickled mackerel, $20 per serving. Baked chicken drumstick, $15 per serving. And that is served with rice and pink beans or cornmeal and okra, toast salad. Remember, eat healthy, eat well, eat responsibly, eat at C&C.
The views, comments, and opinions expressed on this radio station and on the Freedom Wall are not the views, comments, and opinions of the management, staff, and board of directors of Freedom FM, and are solely those of the individual caller and sender. You are hereby notified that the management, staff, and board of directors are not responsible and are not in any way liable for the views, comments, and opinions expressed on this radio station and on any website owned and operated by this radio station.
Well, we promised the callers, so we go straight back to a call. Good night, caller, you're on. Hello, caller, good night. Oh, sorry about that. Good night, caller, you're on.
Yes, good night. I listen to the talk a little carefully. So the man there, he's dealing with justice system within the court and so?
He's the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Homeland Security, Labor, Justice and Legal Affairs. So yes, his ministry has some administrative jurisdiction over the court. Okay,
I'm speaking of, like say the ghetto youths then, for the ghetto youths then, right? Mm-hmm. So he said they're building a new jail, right?
Well, he said that they're in some negotiations now.
Okay, towards that. Anyway, yes. Speaking of that, you know, is most marijuana smokers going to fill up that jail, so to speak?
I don't know.
Because, listen now, so to speak, we get caught with a little marijuana, a little spliff, I must say. We got to pay this load of money for this thing, and the salary we're making ain't enough. Mostly to feed the children them and to pay the bills them. Mm-hmm. So he asking him now, if he could be a little more lenient towards the minister, them talk to them. Because he's supposed to be a one Caribbean government thing, you know.
Lenient about what, caller?
If they're going to be moving us and us for the marijuana, right? And mm-hmm. the bigger states using it for their own use. Mm-hmm. And God, we don't here in the Caribbean on a heavy duty and charge with it. You check it out?
What are you asking for? Leniency or for consideration in terms of decriminalizing it? Because, I mean, they're two different issues.
All of that there is thing, because all of that there in it still, because actually, my brethren, if we get catch with a little split, now for my brethren them going out, we got to go pay 3,000, 2,000 for a little half a marijuana split. You check it out?
So you're saying that you think the punishment is too harsh, or would you like to see it decriminalize a portion of it, you know?
The punishment is too harsh, and we need to decriminalize a little thing. At least we could get a little spliff. The brethren, if you get catch with a little spliff, even though you just want to take it out, just give us a break, because to pay 2,000 for a little half a spliff, my brethren, and just say we got to feed the children them and pay bills and things. That is too harsh. Because right now I got a virgin going to the bank to get $15,000 loan just to pay for a little bit of marijuana, my virgin. Okay. And we ain't have nothing. Okay. You check it out?
Yes.
And then if like they want to smoke cigarette and drink one because them they factory made.
Okay.
You understand?
Yes.
I give thanks. I will listen after the ear.
Yes, well, we'll take more calls and then we'll get to the questions because if we start interacting on individual calls, we probably wouldn't get very far. Thank you very much, caller. And remember the telephone numbers 465-0546, 465-6474, 305-515-3099. And while we are waiting, then maybe we can get to the gentleman's concern. He thinking that the sentencing that is available, that is administered right now, is harsh, and he's also. Well, let's take this call and see what this caller has to say. Good night, caller. You're on.
Good night, comrade. How are you?
I'm not too bad, and you?
And right. And how is the comrade, Honorable Minister?
Well, I don't know if he's a comrade. He'll have to tell you. I answer you as my comrade. I don't know. I don't know about comrade. Comrade. I mean, you and I are comrades because we go back a long way.
Yeah, I know that.
Well, good. That's where our camaraderie is.
The last time that you had him on there in the capacity as Attorney General, I raised a couple of important issues with him. And I'm very, very happy to see that at least something is in the works to address the issues I raised with him. First issue was because of the snail pace at which matters reach the court to be tried, why not have night court? Why not have a multi-court judicial facility so that you can have different courthouses there where you try maybe traffic, gun court, gun cases, murder, different things. And I heard him say that they're going to do something like that.
Yes.
You know, which I must say.
Well, they're working on it. They're working on it because I don't want it to be said that he said anything is happening that is not happening.
No. They're working on it.
Yes.
And I'm happy that they're working on it because it's something that they're giving some thought to. Because I find that too many times people end up in court, in prison, and they are remanded, and they're there forever before they are tried. And I was wondering what in the world can they do to help. Now, I sympathize also with the brother there with reference to the marijuana thing. But the law has a tendency to think that, it's illegal. And if it hurts somebody in their pocket, then it will deter them. I mean, what is so difficult to just throw the thing aside, forget it, realize you have children to feed, and that same money you may want to feed your children with ends up paying in the court for a little marijuana strip, as he says.
Well, I'll tell you the truth, because I do intend to raise it a little later, but not tonight, but on a later program. But the gentleman is right that it is being decriminalized in the United States of America. In various states in the United States of America, it is decriminalized. In Amsterdam, international big countries are decriminalized.
The people vote for that.
Well, maybe
they vote for that.
Maybe we need.
So it's not like
it was on.
Maybe we need to put it to the people.
It was on my ballot when I voted in November.
Maybe we need to put it to the people.
Right. It was on my ballot when I voted in November. So I find that that's something that you could put on, among other things, that should go to the electorate.
Well, anything in particular that you want out of the discussion tonight? Because now, he has various other portfolios. Anything that you want to put to him out of the discussion?
No, well, I just wanted to say that in a colloquial term, I wanted to big him up for at least mentioning that they're looking into doing a couple of the things that I suggested to him. When he was on there as Attorney General sometime last year. I'm sure he remembers who I am. I spoke to him just after the program ended.
Yeah, well,
yes.
So, right. So, I mean, the other stuff that you're asking him is quite straightforward, and I'm sure that other people would have benefited from that. But I don't really have anything else right now until I listen further to the discussion.
Okay.
Something may pop up, and I may have an idea, and I could come back again.
Well, sure. Feel free to call back if you want to. All right. Thank you very much. All right. Well, let us hear what you think about what the previous caller asked. He was talking about the leniency, if you can be lenient in sentencing, and the decriminalizing thing.
Well, the question of sentencing is a matter for the jurisdiction of whoever is trying the matter. And so you normally have mitigating factors. You normally have aggravating factors. And so both sets of factors are weighed in the balance, and the court will impose a sentence that is in line with what is legislated in the law. And so we normally say you must temper justice with mercy, and so you would give the sentence that fits the offense which has been committed.
Or maybe the circumstances of the offense.
Exactly. All the relevant, all the factors will be taken into account in relation to that. And so any decriminalization of marijuana, that has to be science-based. There has to be the empirical data available that will guide the process going forward in relation to that. And all the states that they claim where it is done, these are ballot initiatives, and the people of the different states, they have voted in favor of the action that has been taken.
Okay. All right, let's, all right, well, that caller will come back, I'm sure. We go back to the telephone lines. Good night, caller, you're on.
Good night, Mr. Edinborough.
Good night to you as well.
I have a problem here bothering me all the time.
Well, you know we have the Honorable Patrice Nisbett on tonight. You have anything for him?
Yes, it's something I need to know.
Well, I would like you to address him. He's here. You just addressed me. The Honorable gentleman is here. So could you say good night to the minister?
Good night to the gentleman there. Good night.
Good evening.
It's been about 3 to 4 years now. I have a neighbor here with a septic tank. And it's pure messy water coming through my yard, running in front of shop do I have here. And I cannot get them fixed every time I go. He's telling me, give him a chance, give him a chance, give him a chance. And years pass by now.
Have you been giving him the chance? Because maybe you're contributing to the problem.
Yes, I give him a load of chance where we go down the clinic too. And he asked me to give him a chance. And to December gone there. Well, January gone now, and this is February now. And to tonight here, the water coming through from yesterday to tonight here. And none of them seems to do nothing. Is the Maynard them up there, Howell Maynard and Antonia Maynard, they belong to the yard up there. They're saying they're going to get it fixed. They're going to get this fixed, but what a point what they're doing. They're waiting until rain comes to let go the water, but the water so stink that you could still smell the difference. And
well, caller.
Yeah.
Caller. I understand that. I mean, I certainly wouldn't like that problem, and I certainly would not condone it and put up with it. And I don't think you should.
Yes.
But
I just wanted to know what could I do. If I need to take them to the court. Well,
all right. I will ask the Minister of Legal Affairs if he can advise you on that. Okay?
I need some advice to know what to do with them. It's here now, years now since going, case what that.
All right.
Well,
all right. I'll have him give you whatever advice he can give you as a minister and as a lawyer as well.
Yes, dear, I'm listening.
All right. Thank you very much.
Well, I would suggest that you engage the health authorities in the country, and they will be able to do or use whatever power they have under the relevant legislative framework that they operate under. I would also advise you to seek counsel and go to your lawyer. You explain the situation to your lawyer, and your lawyer will be able to advise you as to the possible action that you can take in order to remedy or to bring some relief to the situation that you are experiencing. And so, speak to the health, and also, if you wish, if they are not able to be successful in their efforts to alleviate your suffering, well then I would definitely advise you to seek a private lawyer who will be able to take some form of action for you in relation to the matter.
All right, thank you. We go back to the telephone line. Good night, caller. You're on.
Good night, Mr. Edinborough.
Good night to you as well.
And good night to the former AG.
Well, but he has portfolios now. You're not off with them. You don't know what his portfolios are.
Boy, how this year not going on to know.
Well, but man, you must listen. Well, let me tell you what he is. He's the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Let me tell me.
But I'm the host.
Oh, go ahead.
Good. He's the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Homeland Security, Labor, Justice, and Legal Affairs.
Well, thank you. Now, I heard him make some comments that I wish to comment myself about. Mm-hmm. The first one is the severance pay. No, I heard him saying that people view it as a pension fund.
No, he said that some persons have
used it
as that.
A pension fund?
Yes.
No, I think he'll have to clarify that. Because if I am aware, you pay 1% and your employer also pays. Is he aware of that?
The employer pays 1%.
Right, and you're the person, you pay 1% too?
No, they don't pay. It's the employer makes the contribution in the severance fund.
And who makes the other one?
It's just 1% that is paid by the employer.
All right. So that, I think maybe what has been the problem, because the economy has been so bad, a number of companies have closed down, leaving the people to get their severance pay. But the severance pay goes into the consolidated fund, isn't that so?
Yes.
Right, so that is part of the problem. So it is not that people really are saying, but the government is strapped for cash. And being strapped for cash, and you have these lots of claims coming in. To put the, if you want to say the owners or the blame on the people who claim, to me is a kind of unfair. Right, because if the economy was in good shape, you wouldn't have to make that statement.
Well, what do you think about his? Because he did say that.
But he did not go on to say exactly what he wanted to do.
He did say that.
You have to look at it.
They are looking at establishing something with respect to persons who have worked for companies for a long period of time and is leaving that company, whether it is retirement or by way of resignation.
Well, that is what the severance pay was set up for. Because if you go and do that, would you ask the companies to continue to make contributions? And what role does the Social Security play? Because, you see, we have to get all of these things sorted out. Mm-hmm. Because we can't just say, because the government is unable to pay, because it is strapped for cash, that you now go and concoct something else that later on things may improve, as you may find may become even a bigger burden.
Well, in fairness, and I'm going to let you put something directly to him after. In fairness, the gentleman didn't say anything about concocting anything. He said that they are studying, all right, he said that they are studying the system as a view of improving it. And I would think that is something that should be welcomed. He even mentioned about short-term unemployment benefit. All of those things he mentioned because they are looking at improving the system. So, I mean, but I'll let you put something to him directly, though.
Do you understand what I was saying?
Yes, I understand what you were saying. But anything directly you want to put to him, go ahead.
Yes. Now, in terms of who could approach the AG's office to have laws made or introduced, and I'll tell you why. Mm-hmm. Now, we have the OECS Economic Union, and I would anticipate that over the maybe next couple of years, we should have a common legal system, isn't that so?
Well, we normally have what we call harmonized legislation.
Right, so I'm coming
harmonized legislation. That's what we have.
Right, because yesterday I called in on Judy's show and I was asking Honorable Marcella about a law which is in place in Antigua, Barbados, Guyana, Trinidad, other countries, where the partner of common law relationships, on the demise of the partner, that they have certain rights. Now, I have been to the AG's office. I didn't speak to you, but I spoke to one of your workers, one of your attorneys there, about the existence of it, because I recall some years ago I well, I used to do work along with the gender affairs. And we had gone through things about trying to get the laws that affect women updated. And that was one of the laws that we had done some work on. We had used the Barbados model. And I was surprised later when a lady approached me and was putting her case that, you know, her mate had died and she had lost everything because the family came in. And she had been to your office or the lawyer's office, and there was nothing in place to assist her. There was also the distribution of asset law. I started one for Trinidad and Guyana. Now, you were the AG, and I think you still have some clout. At what point are you in getting this law to Parliament? Because it is urgent. It is urgent as
So
far
what I'd like him to address is the is something.
You know the name of the law, you know. It's called something spousal.
Okay.
Right? So how urgent is it? Because I was told by the attorney from your office that you have done nothing on it. And as I said, I was surprised because we had done a whole set of work in getting these laws updated. So in your agenda, because you were there.
Sylvain, I mean, to say that you were told by one of his attorneys, that he has done nothing on it. I mean, anybody can say what they feel.
No, this is not by the road or anything.
Yes, I know. Even an attorney can say what they feel, but how do they know that he has done nothing on it? If you want to ask him, I'm just saying, if you want to ask him, then ask him and he will respond.
Well, what are you answering for him?
I'm not answering for him. I'm controlling. I'm controlling the program. He will answer, but I am controlling the program. Okay. Thank you very much. He'll answer the question.
Yeah, let him answer.
But let me first of all say that the point that you raised that the government is strapped for cash, and so as a result of that, there is this strain on the severance payment, and so that is why you are saying that I am saying that people are using the severance payment fund as a retirement benefit package is not a correct premise. What I want to say to you is that the people in the Labor Department, they have done their studies. They have looked at the various claims that have been submitted to the Labor Department, and they have come to a considered opinion based upon the data that is available to them, that they have seen instances over this long period that the fund has been in existence, that people have sought through their creativity to use the fund as if it was some sort of a retirement fund, or use it in order to give a retirement benefit. And what we are saying is that when the fund was originally contemplated and designed in its construct, it was designed for persons who are either severed and persons who are retrenched. And as a matter of fact, all the claims that have been submitted to the Labor Department for processing that qualify for the payment in 2012, those persons have received their monies. And so it is not no issue about being strapped for cash. It is a factual situation. And we recognize, based upon the wording of the existing legislation, there are certain defects and certain deficiencies. And people can, in fact, use the legislation in such a way, because of its wording, in order to achieve a particular purpose. And so we intend to design a solution in order to deal with that situation. And so we are going to look at it in a very holistic manner by looking at the issue of the gratuity payment. We're going to look in relation to that, so that one would not have to resort to a creative way of ensuring when somebody is leaving after maybe 10, 20 years, they come and make a claim on the fund as if it's really a redundancy situation. There are numerous examples.
The persons have filled the very same position that they have left.
Exactly.
That is definitely
there are numerous examples in relation to that. In relation to the issue of family law, we have done some work with our OECS brothers in relation to that aspect of the law. We are yet to move to Parliament with that piece of legislation. What we have sought to do was to deal with the children first. And so we were in the process of moving to the Parliament various pieces of legislation dealing with the protection of our children. And so we were able to pass the maintenance, and I think it was the guardianship and adoption of children legislation. And then we will get down to issues that she raised, and also the issue of the family court. Those are matters that are on the legislative calendar of the government to deal with at the appropriate time.
All right. We go back to the telephone line. Good night, caller. You're on.
Good night. This is about persons that have been caught out with guns and what's not. And what I realize and think is when persons being caught out with guns, they're in a jail for a very, very long time. And when they caught out like a police or a army with the same gun, the police go to the jail, and when done somebody go and bail out the police. The point I am making here, if they could keep the other ordinary man in the prison for so much years, they should bring up a law that when they catch a police or army man with gun, they shouldn't bail him out. And when they child molest children, they shouldn't bail them. You know why I say so? Because when they keep bailing out police and army man when they do the wrong, think it will never be a better place. You see how think it's there? Is a lot of people who are supposed to uphold the army and police at them how think it's there today. Okay. When they catch people with marijuana, they deal with them harsh. And when they do wrong things, they get away. Okay. They should bring up a law. When they catch them with guns, no bail. Good night.
Okay, good night. Good night, caller. You're on.
Good evening, Mr. Edinborough.
Good evening to you as well.
Good evening to the Honorable Patrice.
Good evening.
How are you, sir?
I am very well.
Okay. I've only heard part of your presentation. Unfortunately, I wasn't listening from the beginning. But I tuned in around the time when you were speaking about work permits. And correct me if I'm wrong, I thought I heard you said that 1,000 had been issued. Is that Sinkits only?
I say in Sinkits. That's Sinkits. That's the statistics for Sinkits.
My question to you, do you know any figures for Nevis?
No, I am not privy to the figures at this point in time.
Okay. My question, though, we keep hearing that so many people are unemployed, people are out of work. How do we justify 1,000 work permits in Sinkit with so many people being out of work?
Well, one has to look at whether the individual applicants would have satisfied the criteria that would be in the regulation dealing with the grant of work permits. You are quite aware that in relation to our labor market, there are certain skill sets that are lacking, and so the issue of recruitment in order to satisfy that sector of the economy would indeed be required and indeed would be imperative. Also, you are quite aware that there are a number of areas in terms of the field of work that some of our nationals prefer not to engage themselves in. And so those tasks are tasks that have to be carried out, and people will have to carry out those tasks. And so if nationals are not prepared to engage themselves in doing those tasks, one would have to recruit persons from different areas or different countries in order to do the work. And so I would imagine that those who are charged with the responsibility, they are indeed mindful of the unemployment situation here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so they would make their decision based upon what is presented to them, and they being satisfied that it is a justifiable case in the circumstances to grant the work permit.
Now, what is the work base in St. Kitts? What are the numbers for the number? What is the amount of people that are registered workers in St. Kitts with the labor department? Am I saying that right?
That statistic I don't have to hand, but I can always, the labor department can always make that statistic available, because they do collect information in relation to the job market, and so they should have the data in relation to that.
You touched on a very important point, and that is persons choosing or not choosing to do certain types of work. Now, we have become a society where we're very vocal on a daily basis, sometimes more than one or more than 2 or 3 talk shows per day. And so a lot of information goes out across the airwaves here, and of course on the blog. And you do hear constantly how many people are not working. Yet that's a very interesting point, because a lot of people choose not to work. One of the problems here is discipline. And there are persons who don't want to do certain types of work because they don't want to be in a regiment of discipline where there has to be order and timeliness. And that is one of the things that we fall short in our culture. So you've touched on a very interesting point in terms of the type of work people choose or not choose to do. And I'm hoping that as persons are listening, they will understand that it's not every time when a person says there's no work here to do is because they have truthfully gone out there and tried to get some type of employment until something better comes along. Mr. Edinborough, thank you for this program tonight. It's quite interesting. It's a step aside from the norm. And thank you, Honorable Patrice, for giving us a further peek into some of the information that would be very helpful in us making clear assessment of what is really going on in our federation. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for your contribution as well. Well, telephones are going. Honorable Minister, your bosses are holding you here. We'll take this. Turn your radio down, please. We'll take this call and then we'll go to our sponsors and then we'll come back.
Yes, good evening, Edinborough.
Good evening to you as well.
Let's say good evening to the Honorable Patrice Nisbett too.
Good evening.
Yes. I have 2 questions for your program tonight. Yes. One concerning the labor issue and another one with the legal issue.
Mm-hmm.
The one with the labor issue now, I have a number of friends who've been meeting me around the place and complaining, oh, I lost my work. Why you lose your work? The boss man has attitude and he fired me, tell me don't come back on the work. And these are people who have jobs for years. And then they get fired, they go to the labor department with their claims that they get fired, and they will let you know how to get their severance pay because they get fired. And because of big companies, the labor officers, whoever, they don't push the issue for the employer. They take the case and they
for the employer or the employee?
Pushing it. So you find for months the people who are not working, wondering how they get in their money. They keep telling them, come back to the office. When they go to the office, they have meetings with the employee and the labor officer themselves without the employer being there. So you have a one-side case. And as far as the people are telling me, it's just like the labor officer is keeping himself with the employee. So he doesn't concern about the
No, let me see if you're when you're because it sounds as though the employee is the person who was fired. The employer is the person who employed him previously.
Yeah. So what I said is that when time to go to the office to check on your money out to find out what's going on with the letter from the job, you know, see that they had meetings with the person who you employ already, even behind your back without you knowing. So when they go there, tell you definitely, oh, you lose your work because of this. And sometimes what they're telling you is not really the real issue. They take this one-side story from the people who employ you, and they don't wait to hear what you have to say. So they try the case behind your back, and they just submit the statement right away. And even up to now, the people are still having problems getting the money. Okay. And this is a big hotel. This is a big hotel. It's one of the biggest hotels in St. Kitts where people losing their work and not getting their money up to now.
Okay. And the other question you had about the legal?
Is on a legal aspect concerning the marijuana. Now, in recent times, a number of my friends have been searched. The homes have been searched in their absence. They're not there. Police go to the place, break the door off and go into their places. And then in the end still go back home and summons them and charge them for marijuana that they don't even see because they're not at the premises when they come and enter the place. So I want to know what's the legal aspect when it comes to dealing with this. Okay. Where they get what legal aspect said that, oh, you could enter the house in the absence of the person and things like that, because a lot of people is happening and people want to get this thing clear to know what's going on.
Well, I'll have the minister address those two concerns for you.
Okay.
Well, let's, Minister, address your mind to it. We shall go to our sponsors and then we'll come back. Patrice Nisbett, I mean, he has really given his due. He intended to be here for an hour. It's going now for 2 hours. But it's his employers that are holding him here. So please don't hold me accountable for that, Honorable Minister. We're going to, well, let's the last caller that we had, will when you start responding, you respond to that first. But let me just let those on the Freedom Wall know that we are watching you. And let me just read a few comments. One of them has to do with the marijuana situation. It has to do with the Proposition 1014 in Connecticut, and it was discussed in the House there, they said, in the Senate, and the representatives gave their approval. I think in California it went on the ballot. In Florida it went on the ballot. You know, in some places it's done differently, but overall it has always been by way of consultation. So that's one of the comments that was coming on the wall, and well, I don't know. It doesn't on my program. It doesn't have anything to do with whether Palmer's been out of office for long and how and when they're coming back in. It has to do with information, and everybody's got a right to support the political party of their choice. So, who's that? Peace. The lady has the right to support who she wants to support. We are looking at, well, somebody wants to know about passport. We're not yet, well, want to know about how many passports have been sold under SIDF. I don't know. I mean, you know, immigration is under you. So if you have the information and you're willing to share it, you can do that. Oh, well, thank you. Somebody think that I should have been an advisor and I can be AG to this. I don't know. Well, I can't be well, I mean, can the AG be...
You won't qualify under the Constitution.
To be
you have to be a barrister.
Okay, so I cannot be the Attorney General, but they say I can be an advisor. Thank you very much for your commendation. Well, we go back to the telephone line and we take this call and maybe one or two more, then we'll answer them and wrap up. All right. Good night, caller. You're on.
Yes, good night.
Good night.
It's me again.
Okay.
I am glad I heard the minister's countrywoman call. Now, I wish to address some issues in relation to the labor market, the labor department, the labor market. Now, as the AG, he would have been aware that we have signed a number of conventions, ILO conventions.
He made reference to some of them.
Right. Now, the union has been calling for the labor code. I have heard statements that people have come in and started, but I don't know what has. Something seems to be in limbo. Maybe he could educate me as to how far we are with that. That's one. Now in 1994, 95, we had a labor market survey done. And out of it, the suggestion was made that we have a labor market information system. That was set up initially at the education department, and of course we at the statistics department also work along with it. Now, somewhere along the line that fell through. Another program was put in when computers were put into the labor department, and people were encouraged to go and register, if they needed a job or something like that. That also fell through.
No, it has not. That I know has not fallen through because I've heard the Labor Department in recent time asking people to register with them. So that has not fallen through.
I'm continuing. I knew, because I read it on the list this week, that somebody is there presently putting up a new system.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? Because the one I'm telling you, the one that was there before.
Maybe it's inadequate now. Go on.
Non-functional, eh?
Okay, go on.
Because what I am saying, that if Mr. What's his name again? The minister.
The Honorable Patrice Nisbett.
Honorable Patrice Nisbett. If he's serious about the labor market and the labor situation, then we have to have a more sustainable system. I mean, I personally am tired of government putting in...
But let me ask you a question, Sylvan. Do you realize that it is less than a month since he's the Minister of Labor? He's now on a radio program outlining certain things to you. Yes. I mean, he should be commended rather than taken to task.
We are not commending or we are criticizing. I am suggesting. You understand?
Okay, all right.
It's none of those. All I'm saying that if we are serious about dealing with the unemployment system and the placement and the labor market situation, he will have to see that a sustainable program is put in place, that people are identified and trained for it, because the truth is they have one statistician, which is the fellow Stevens, and there is only so much he can do. Because you only have one person, a lot of the things that they used to do have fallen through. So if you were to go to the department and ask to get data, simple relevant data, non-existent. You understand?
Okay.
So I am saying to the minister now, because he needs to know going in. Because sometimes, when you go to the departments, everybody give it a nice story.
Okay.
But you don't know. But on the where people need the data. So I'm asking Patrice, Honorable Patrice, you have to pay attention to the data collection system at the Labor Department. And the new system that's being put in, it should be advertised so people know what it is there to do and how to access it.
Okay. Anything else you want to put to him? Because, this would be the last time I would imagine you might be able to call for the night, because we're going to be wrapping up pretty soon. Okay. She seemed to have gone. So, you want to touch that... let's take this call. Good night, caller. You're on.
Hey, Eddie.
Yeah, how are you tonight, my brother?
I'm good.
You've got the Minister of Labor tonight. You wanted the Minister of Labor some time ago. You got him tonight.
The Honorable Patrice Nisbett. Listen, Patrice,
I would rather if you say Honorable Minister, if you don't want to say his name.
Okay. Honorable Minister, I tuned in tonight just in time to hear you say something like non-nationals with work permits aren't taxed, some sort of tax. Am I correct?
Well, I asked him about a special income tax, and he said that is something that can be considered, but he also pointed out the ramifications with respect to the various treaties that we are involved in and so on.
Well, yeah, I wanted to hear from him because simply I was wondering how does that break down, I mean, if nationals are being charged this tax.
No. Let me tell you what, because I'm the person who put the question to him, and that's why I'm responding there. I said that I believe that if you go to a country to work, to support your family back in another country, that you should contribute something to the country other than by the way of the work permit, and so that you should pay a special income tax. That was my opinion. In response to that, he said it is something that can be considered, but he also warned of the ramifications because of the various protocols that we are involved in with our neighboring islands and so forth.
So at the moment they don't pay a tax, is that correct?
No, we don't charge income tax here, so all they pay is the work permit and social security, and I think they pay the severance as well. Well, the employee, you know, those are and the social services levy.
So they're treated like everybody else?
Yes, they're treated like everybody else.
Okay, so that's fair. Now, there was something else I wanted to speak about.
All right, go straight ahead.
It's this marijuana issue. Simply because you're talking about all these agreements that are taken, like unilateral, bilateral, and multilateral agreements. Some people are saying that the United States and Amsterdam and all those places are allowing their citizens to smoke. One of the places I believe that we're friendly with is Israel. I happened to be in the bank the other day, and I was watching this news clipping about Israel allowing its citizens to smoke. And they're growing it for them. That's something you can look into. I mean, just don't take my word for it. Anyhow.
So you also think that there should be a view at decriminalizing it in some form?
The funny thing is, right, here's my twisted version of it. I don't see none of you people running around with guns and bombs looking for God to go arrest him for something that he made. Yeah? While you stew on that, just remember, you know, everybody loves Israel, and if they're allowing their citizens to do it,
I don't.
They themselves must see the benefit in it. So that's something to consider.
Okay. All right. Well, the Honorable Patrice Nisbett, we have a few questions that is before you, and I think it's about time I'll ask you for your final wrap too, because I really can't ask you to stay more than 2 hours. So there was a gentleman who was on, and he made mention of searches, and he spoke about what is, in my opinion, the same thing you were talking about in terms of persons who were dismissed. And well, this is even more troublesome, and I know it is out there in the public, and I'll have my final question for you. You want my final question now?
But let me say first of all that it is not everyone who is dismissed is entitled to a severance payment.
Okay.
People have to satisfy the conditions under the Act in order to get the necessary redundancy or severance payment. So if you're fired from your job and you are not terminated as a result of the circumstances outlined that entitles you to a redundancy payment, you will not get one. And so it is not every termination leads to an entitlement to severance, and that has to be understood upfront by employers and employees, and employees more in particular. And so I believe if they go to the Labor Department and they are not qualified, those who are in the Labor Department should clearly indicate to them that they are not entitled under the existing framework for that type of payment.
I would say not just indicate, write to them. I think they should.
If that's what it takes in order to communicate the information, well, that should be done. And so he should understand that it is not every termination leads to a redundancy payment.
Okay. Well, again, and I mean, I'm an old policeman, so
Well, in relation to that, I don't believe that happens in St. Kitts and Nevis. I don't believe people go around searching your house and no one is at home. And I don't see how you're going to be able to take a matter like that before the courts and expect a conviction. I don't think that matters of what he indicate do occur in this present environment in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Okay. Well, let's take this final call since the comment now, and this is our final call, please. The Honorable Patrice Nisbett has to leave. Good night, caller. You are our final call.
Edinborough, thanks for letting me once again.
Yes.
I'll let me say something to the Honorable Patrice Nisbett again for what I just spoke about a few minutes ago.
Yeah,
if you think they're not happening in St. Kitts and Nevis, tell him to check on the court matters in Sandy Point, and he will see that this case was recently thrown out just because of the lack of evidence.
Okay.
And this is what is still happening in my community, in Diebe.
Okay.
So let him check it out, and he will see.
Okay.
Very well.
All right.
All right, thank you. All right, my final question to you. And, you know, I always said I know where to start and I know where I'll end.
But before you go, let me address something that the female caller, she would have called, and she spoke about the labor market information system.
Okay. Yes.
We do have a system in place. I think it was the installation took place last month.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was in the news. And so we are now better able and better equipped to collate and collect and store and analyze and dispense the labor market information. I want also to indicate to her that we will ensure that the necessary capacity building initiatives are undertaken so that people in the labor department can be equipped with the necessary skill set to maintain the system that has been implemented at the labor department.
All right. Now, you know I can't let you go without asking a political question. So here is the political question for you. And it's twofold. One, the last time you were here, you were Attorney General, Minister of Legal Affairs, Justice, and Legal Affairs. You're back with various other portfolios, the Foreign Affairs, Homeland Security, Labor, Justice, and Legal Affairs. There's a political talk about whether or not you are being demoted. So I'm just going to ask you, quite frankly, how do you feel with respect to your present portfolio as against the last one? And secondly, because there's also, again, a lot of political talk, are you, the Honorable Patrice Nisbett, in support of the policies that come out of the Labour NRP administration? Those are my two last questions for you.
First of all, I have been entrusted with serious responsibilities in the government in terms of the new portfolio assignment. And so I normally take my responsibilities very seriously. And I am here to serve my country. And I did not select myself to be a minister in the cabinet of ministers in St. Kitts and Nevis. I was identified by the Prime Minister, and he did advise His Excellency to appoint me then the Attorney General, and subsequently he advised the Governor General of the different changes to the cabinet positions. And so I serve in a government, and it is the Prime Minister who has the sole responsibility or discretion to make adjustments in relation to the different portfolios in the cabinet of ministers of St. Kitts and Nevis. And so I think that I have been entrusted with very serious and profound responsibilities in the government. And I intend to carry out my responsibilities as seriously and as earnestly as I did when I carried out my responsibilities as Attorney General of St. Christopher and Nevis.
Well, I mean, you're the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and normally, if you're not a division minister within the federal government, because the NIA doesn't deal with international relations, does it?
You know, I want to say that I am a federal parliamentarian, and I'm a part of the central or the federal government. And so I am here to serve the nationals of St. Kitts and Nevis. And at the same time, I am here to serve my constituents who would have sent me to Bastia. And so the Nevis Island administration has complained over the years that they have not seen the type of complexion that they would want to see in terms of foreign representation for St. Kitts and Nevis. And so I am now the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and working with the Nevis Island administration, I believe I will be able to achieve that necessary balance and equity that they would want to see in terms of foreign representation for St. Kitts and Nevis that is truly reflective of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Yes. All right. Well, the last part of my question. Are you in full support? I just like to hear it from you. I mean, I know you had a press conference.
I believe, and I've always respected the Convention of Collective Responsibility. I'm a part of a government, and the way our government operates, people have different ideas and different thoughts about different issues. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, once a decision is taken on a particular matter, one is expected to support that decision. And so once I am a part of the process, I will support the decision that is taken. If I don't wish to support the decision, I believe I know what the avenues are that are available to me. And so once you're in and you're bound by the theory of collective responsibility, I will ensure that I support what is the consensus or the agreed position of the Cabinet of Ministers of St. Christopher and Nevis.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Patrice Nisbett. Thank you again for being at our studios. And I would say that I really did enjoy this interview. I hope that you had fun as well. And let me at this time thank the callers as well. And because I'm going to give you the final word, so let me take this opportunity to thank all of the callers who contributed tonight, and those of you who were on the Freedom Wall, even though sometimes it was a little lower than I would have liked in terms of the discussion. I would say the discussion on the wall tonight in particular was at a very good standard as well. So thank you very much for contributing. And the final word to you, the Honorable Patrice Nisbett.
I want to first of all thank you for having me here on the show. It's Freedom Talk. I thought we were able to talk freely and discuss the issues that are confronting us as a country. And I believe that we were able to disseminate certain pertinent information to the general public of St. Kitts and Nevis. I would want to thank all the contributors to the program. I believe that I have been able to benefit from the discourse, and we are here to listen to the general public of St. Kitts and Nevis, and if it is that the ideas are such that they could better serve the interests of the population of St. Kitts and Nevis, those ideas will in fact be taken on board, because we are here working in the interests of the people of the country. And so, I have been here before, I am here now, and I'm sure I will be back at some point in time to dialogue and to engage and to rap with the people of St. Kitts and Nevis on whatever issue that they would wish to raise while I'm here in the studios of Freedom. I want to thank you for listening, to thank the good people of Nevis 11, and to say to them that I continue to work on behalf of them and on behalf of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Good night and God bless you.